My name is Emily Cronin and I'm Head of Trading at St Peter and St James Hospice. I joined a week before the pandemic started and I'm really enjoying my job. It's fantastic, it's really fun to be here and really good to work with the rest of the team.
Hi, I'm Melissa Lewis and I'm the Retail Area Manager for St Peter's and St James.
Hello, my name is Ben Mikowski and I drive a van for St Peter's and James Hospice.
One of my first memories was visiting my grandfather in hospital. I was 5 and had picked some flowers from the garden to make him feel better. He was, as the doctors described, riddled with cancer. He passed away in a hospital with little pain management and specialist care. Throughout my life, the words cancer and hospice care have been commonplace. My mother has had cancer 3 times, the first time I was 7 and remember the kindness and compassion of people. 10 years ago today, my father passed away in a hospice. My sister and I had nursed him through his illness and were lucky enough to be with him in the hospice at the end of his life. At the same time, we also nursed my mother-in-law through her terminal diagnosis. Again, being fortunate enough to have the fantastic hospice community support team to facilitate her wishes of passing away at home. I've spent the last 25 years working globally in buying, both in retail and in e-commerce led businesses, with a focus on building brands, P&L management and supplier bases. The last year has been challenging for everyone, but with an adaptable and flexible approach, we have strengthened as a multidisciplinary team. We are very excited about our plans, a new DC, Kickstarters, greater online presence and the dispensary brand. There is a lot to look forward to.
That was a joke, not that. Joking. Dangerous joke for a woman. That's really dangerous. I think by now you know that. Why am I here?
Having a nagging youngster next to me.
I'm in your comfort zone. No, I made an old joke the other day. She didn't even answer, so I'm used to it.
We all get those, don't we? The old jokes.
It's not the same as people don't have. So I would say pretend I'm not here, but
Melissa,
you're going to try and get questions out of me again.
so Melissa, how long have you been with the hospice?
5 months. So yes, I suppose my hospice story starts, well, 10 years ago I lost my mum very suddenly. She had an aneurysm in upfield of the swimming pool and died instantly. And then 2 years later I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I had to go through chemo, radio. I had children of 8 and 11 at the time. So obviously everything goes through your mind. Is this the end of your life? Who will look after your children? You know, you have to face up to end of life, I think. And at the time I was working for Hobbs, so big retail chain, ladies fashion. And I went to Cath Kidston and I was there for 7 years, and I was made redundant. And then at that point I thought I would actually like to work for retail, where it's retail that is giving, and actually what I can do can actually benefit somebody apart from some multi-million-pound owner. So yeah, so I've been here 5 months. I absolutely love it. The job is so varied. Yes, it's completely different. Whereas I used to go to work looking very glamorous every day, I now come in jeans, and I work in donkey sheds. I go in clothing bins. I go out with Ben on the van, which is really good fun. Isn't it, Ben? Yes. I get a lot of old joke abuse, but hey ho.
How great is it?
No, so the last 5 months have been very challenging, as in the shops haven't been open for the majority of that time. But during that time, I've got to know a lot more about the products. We've had some really exciting things happen. We found a rug that was rather smelly, but worth a lot of money, and things like that. It's really, really exciting, and it's so different from high street retail because everything had a cost price, everything had a selling price, whereas here it's quite exciting. Things come in, we can research items, we can put them onto eBay, we can take them to garages, we can sell them in the shop. So lots of things can happen to make good money for the hospice. So yeah.
And we've been able to have the time to plan for the future.
Yes, yeah. Lots of planning, lots of exciting things going forward. So yeah, it's a really exciting time for me to be here and to join. And I just can't wait for the next year really, when hopefully retail will be back to normal and we can sort of get everything going, which we've been planning, so it'll be brilliant. Yes.
This is Ben's story. My mum was re-diagnosed with breast cancer at the end of 2015, where she was told her diagnosis was terminal. This was after 2 years of different treatments, trying anything possible to fight it. It got to the point where Mum could not breathe without panic, as it started spreading to her brain and lungs. This is when Mum was admitted into the hospice in the summer of 2018. I will always remember every detail about the hospice. The support, the care, the way everyone was. I never imagined I could feel so safe at the worst time of my life, knowing that care and compassion was just a button press away. My sister and I stayed with Mum for the 2.5 weeks. Just being allowed to sleep in the same room and never leaving her side was something that I'm still grateful for. It gives you comfort knowing she knew you were always there, so she never felt alone. There are pretty low memories, really. You only remember the worst parts. 90% of the time was bad. There was one time we managed to take her round the wood walk with the dogs. But again, it was also a bad memory because she was in a wheelchair. We managed to bring her home for a couple of hours. Such a small thing, but it felt huge. I remember that whole day so clearly. She was so happy and positive. Mum was medicated for her last few days because she could no longer breathe when awake. So the day before, we lost being able to communicate with her. When she passed away, we didn't want to leave. It felt like home. I ended up forgetting how ill Mum was, all because of the hospice. I had it in my head we were all going to be going home together with Mum. We would visit the cafe weekly just to be able to come back to the hospice. It turned into a safe place. In October 2018, I became a volunteer in the warehouse, sorting through the books and starting up the process of selling them on Zifit. Still wanting to never leave, I took the job as a part-time driver at the beginning of 2019, and by March I was full-time. I still now feel lucky to be able to work and help raise funds for a place that cared so much for my mum and my family.
Thank you for listening to Ben, Emily and Melissa's story.